Now, how many of you actually start to get embarrassed when people start talking about their vaginas and vulvas? It seems to be like a taboo area that, we just tend to ignore. We don't talk about. It's as if we're walking around in a baby walker and there doesn't exist. But I can tell you now that this area between their sit bones is so important for both men and women. This area here between their sit bones is the only part of their body that is layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of fascia and connective tissue, and it can actually expand over 3 times its resting potential. That's 150% more, and it's the only group of muscles that does that within the body. So this area between their sit bones is needed for everyday use, for walking, for jumping, for squatting, and all we tend to do all day is sit on it. It needs movement, it needs exercise, it needs nurturing, and we need to get to know it more. When was the last time you actually looked at your vagina or your vulva, for that matter of fact? It's such an important area, and it's so sad that we don't talk about it enough, and it's so sad that we don't nurture it as enough as we should do. It's an area that needs to expand for childbirth, for defecation, for urination. It's just such an important part. It's the most important part, that it's the lowest part of our core. And yet we still ignore it, and yet we still get embarrassed talking about our vulvas and our vaginas. So anyway, my Corey was invented to help for a number of reasons. One is to help oxygenate the area. When you massage something, you get a whole load of neurological, physiological, biochemical and emotional responses, and it's an amazing way to connect to our vaginas and our perineum. This area between our sit bones is massive. It goes from our pubic bone all the way around to our coccyx. So this is the urogenital triangle, and this is the anal triangle, and it's this area here that we spend most of our time sitting on. But this is the area here that needs movement. We need all the organs within our pelvis to actually dynamically work together. And just like any other part in our body, it gets stiff. So when we actually think about our pelvic floor, we just think about Kegels. Most of us have heard about them. Some of us think we know what we're doing with them. But a pelvic floor muscle examination is so much more than just, can we squeeze? Up here, I've got our pelvic floor muscle assessment, and we work out, as a women's health physio, if you come and see one of us, it's all about your perfect score. So when we are actually digitally examining, we are looking at the performance of our pelvic floor muscles. We look at the endurance of our pelvic floor muscles. We look at the number of repetitions we can do, and how many times can we squeeze our pelvic floor muscles. It's not just about can we squeeze. And then we've got the fast twitch. Those are the ones we need for our coughs and sneezes. And then we teach you to do things like the knack. Can you cough and squeeze at the same time? Can we elevate our muscles? Are we using the right kind of muscles? So many people tend to use their abdominal muscles instead of just isolating the pelvic floor. And there's a technique. It's not easy for everybody. But unless you connect to your pelvic floor, you're never going to know. You need to learn about it. And it's all about timing as well. So our pelvic floor does so much, and yet we just take it for granted. So, do you know what your pelvic score is? Do you know how long you can squeeze? Do you know how many times you can repetitively do that squeezing? Do you actually know where your pelvic floor muscles are? It's not as easy as people think, but it is so important. It's an area that is just ignored. It's as if we're all walking around in that baby walker, And do you know how many times I hear, oh, I don't use it, so we don't need to talk about it. We need to talk about it because we need it for walking, jumping, squatting, just everyday movements. And the only time we actually do something about it is when it starts to go wrong. And that's so sad, because we should get to know our pelvic floor muscles. We should know how they perform, and we certainly need to pay more attention to them. So anyway, my P.E.R.F.E.C.T was invented for, firstly, internal massage. Internal vaginal massage has all the benefits that you would expect from an external body massage. It's tissue oxygenation, it's hydration, it reduces congestion, it helps us move. You know, if you look at your biceps, if you had a tight biceps, you wouldn't want to be strengthening it. And so many times there are women that have tight pelvic floors that are already resting in a hypertensive state, and things like that can cause pain. So what we want for our biceps is to be able to lengthen, be able to be work with the other muscles around it, and we would need it to be conditioned, strong but flexible at the same time, and have a full range of movement. It's no different to our pelvic floor, and unless we pay more attention to it, it's not going to perform as it should do. And we all know those moments where we put the key in the door and the coughs and sneezes and there's a little bit of extras there, and there are things we can do to help it from being painful. So anyway, my P.E.R.F.E.C.T is a lovely way of massaging. So the nodules cause this little mechanical stretch that just sends a whole cascade of information to the body, to the mechanoreceptors, which just help everything relax and hydrate and oxygenate to give us that nice length. And then afterwards you need to learn to let go and release, and with the bullet, you'd just relax with the vibrations, you'd let go. So you've massaged, you've relaxed, and then once you've got those two stages ready, it's all about being able to perform a nice Kegel exercise, a nice strengthening one. But it's also about knowing how strong you are. It's all about knowing how to let go, and my P.E.R.F.E.C.T just gives you that sensory feedback that helps us connect to our pelvic floors a bit more. So anyway, my P.E.R.F.E.C.T is www.mypere.co.uk. I am there to answer any questions. I am just so determined to help women get to know their pelvic floor, to get to know their vulvas, to know what their normal is, and to enjoy it more. We spend so much time ignoring it. Connect with it.